Outlander Season 7, Episode 16 opens with a flashback to Jane and Fanny's childhood, as the sisters wander through a field of dragonflies with their mother. The scene has a peaceful, almost dreamlike beauty, both sweet and bittersweet as we think about their uncertain future. Back in the present, Jane is imprisoned in a cabin, arrested for killing Harkness. A journalist visits, hoping to get a juicy story out of her. However, Jane refuses to cooperate. She is sharp, sarcastic, and unrepentant. The journalist tries to pressure her, encouraging her to use her final hours to tell her story, but Jane quickly realizes that his goal is to exploit her pain for profit. She declares that she has no more space, but then the journalist uses a clever tactic. He reminds Jane that her sister, Fanny, will probably read whatever he writes. If Jane doesn't share her story, Fanny will only know his version of events. Although Jane doesn't immediately react, she may have decided to talk, in part for Fanny's sake. Meanwhile, at the church, Claire is still unconscious after surgery. Jamie doesn't leave her side. H is extremely worried, because Shush has lost so much blood. He wishes he could give her his own blood, even though she explains to him that it's impossible at the moment, because some blood types are incompatible. Jamie, ever the romantic, insists that his blood will recognize hers because Shush is his blood. And then, just like that, Claire wakes up and tells Jamie that Shush has decided not to die. It's a callback to when Jamie survived a snake bite a few seasons ago and told her the same thing. She says that she can't let him go through the pain of losing her because she knows what it feels like to think H is dead. The love between these two is unparalleled. At the British camp, William approaches Lord John. H is visibly upset and tells John everything about Jane's situation. He asks John for help in finding her and finding a solution. Of course, John agrees. He digs and discovers Jane being held in a nearby cabin. She has signed a confession, so there will be no trial. Her execution is only a few days. When John sees how distraught William is, he asks if William loves Jane. William really has no answer. He says that there is just something about her that draws him, something he can't explain. He wants to protect her but feels like he has failed. John tries to comfort him, pointing out that at least Jane saved Fanny, so her death will not have been in vain, but William finds little comfort in that. Back at the church, Ian reunites with his family. He tells Jamie that he and John saved William and that he is safe now. In return, Jamie and Rachel update Ian on Claire's condition. Jamie also shares that he is done with the war. He sent a letter to General Lafayette, formally resigning from his command. Jamie doesn't care if the army accepts, he refuses to leave Claire again. A week passes, and Claire is much better. There's a sweet moment when Jamie helps her use the bathroom and checks her urine for blood to make sure her kidneys are working properly. Later, they lie in bed together, and Claire tells Jamie about this strange behavior in elephants. Sometimes, when a female elephant is about to die, the male elephant will try to mate with her. Jamie laughs, but since Shush is not dead, and Jamie isn't an elephant, they just share a kiss. Afterwards, Claire asks Jamie if they can go back to Fraser's Ridge, and Jamie promises her that as soon as Shush is fully recovered, they'll go home. That night, Claire wakes up to see a hooded figure approaching her bed. It's Master Raymond, the medicine man from Part 2 who saved Claire's life after she lost her baby in Paris. Claire has not seen him since he was banished from France by the king. He reprimands her for almost dying again, saying that it was not her time. Claire insists that it was not intentional. Raymond then says that he came to ask for her forgiveness. When Claire presses him on why he needs forgiveness, he remains mysterious, saying that she will understand one day. Before leaving, he kisses her hand, and Claire sees a vision of feathers, similar to the one she saw in Paris. He then disappears. The next morning, Claire tells Jamie about Raymond's visit. Jamie says that he did not see anyone, even though he was with her all night. This makes us wonder, was it a dream, or did Raymond really appear? Claire recalls Raymond visiting her the night she nearly died after losing faith. Jamie suggests that her near-death experience may have triggered the memory, but Claire is not so sure. Later, Lord John visits Claire after hearing about her injury. The tension between him and Jamie is neither of them seem to want to mend the rift, and Claire is clearly disappointed in both of them. Before leaving, Claire thanks John for saving her life in Philadelphia, and he says that they saved each other. They share a meaningful look, and then John leaves after one last longing glance at Jamie. Denny also visits Claire to check on her. He admits that it was difficult to operate on someone he cared so much about. Claire reassures him, saying that if she had to operate on a loved one, she hoped she could do as well as he did. That evening, William shows up at Jamie and Claire's doorstep. He asks Jamie to help rescue, but first, if you like this recap, be sure to subscribe. That evening, William shows up at Jamie and Claire's doorstep. He asks Jamie to help rescue Jane. Since it was the first thing his son asked for, Jamie agrees, and the two go to the cabin where Jane is being held. Jamie teaches William how to quietly break a window, a trick he learned from Brianna. They sneak in, but it is too late. 4:46. William finds Jane upstairs. She has committed suicide rather than face the death penalty. William is devastated that he could not save her. Jamie comforts him, and together they lay Jane's body on the bed, remove her chains, and cut off a lock of her hair to give to Fanny. The next day, William takes Fanny to the church, where Jamie and Claire agree to take her in and take her to Fraser's Ridge with them. Jamie promises Fanny that she will be safe there and that no man will force her to do anything she does not want to do. When Fanny insists on saying goodbye to Jane, Jamie assures her and William that the English owe him a favour for returning Simon Fraser's remains to Scotland, so he will use his influence to ensure Jane gets a proper burial. Before parting, William confronts Jamie with questions about his parentage. He asks if Jamie forced Geneva, if he was conceived before she married Ellesmere or after, and if Jamie loved her. Jamie answers truthfully but avoids mentioning Geneva's blackmail. When William asks Jamie if he regrets everything, Jamie says he is sorry for Geneva's death, but he does not regret William. Despite their shared moment, William tells Jamie that he will never call him father and leaves, leaving Jamie heartbroken. Meanwhile, in 1739, Roger and Buck are leaving Lallybroch when Jamie suddenly appears, followed by Brianna and Mandy. They all make it safely through the rocks, and the family is reunited. Brianna then spends some time looking at what I believe is a portrait of Ellen Mackenzie Fraser, and then she has a touching conversation with her grandfather Brian. He tells her about building Lallybroch for Ellen, and how he was always open to her memory. This is a touching setup for the upcoming prequel, Blood of My Blood, and a great addition to the show, since Brianna and Brian don't get a chance to talk in the book. Later, Brianna and Roger discuss whether they should go back to the 1980s or find Jamie and Claire. It's a tough decision, and we'll have to wait until season 8 to find out what happens. Back in the present, Ian gets some great news. Rachel is pregnant. And she wants them to settle down at Fraser's Ridge and raise their child there. But the joy is short-lived when Ian learns that his loyal dog Rolo passed away during the night. The dog's eyes remained open, as if he had watched his master sleep until the very end. It was a heartbreaking sight, and Ian was devastated. He believed that Rolo had waited until Ian had Rachel by his side before he died, so he didn't want to leave him alone. Ian decided to bury Rolo somewhere special, and Rachel assured him that she would help, saying that she would not only marry Ian, but Rolo as well. A few days later, Jamie and Claire took Fanny to the cemetery where Jane was buried, so she could say goodbye. Fanny was heartbroken when she couldn't locate Jane's grave among the unmarked graves. She also worried that Jane might go to hell for killing a man, but Claire reassured her that God would understand. Claire listened as Fanny recounted memories of her sister Jane, like the time they walked through a field full of dragonflies together, or when Jane greeted the northern lights. Claire gently reminds Fanny that her sister will always be with her, in her heart and in her memories. At that moment, Claire gives Fanny a handkerchief containing Jane's belongings, which Jamie had received from the soldiers. Among the items is a locket with a portrait of Fanny and Jane's mother, who is clearly named Faith, the same name as the baby girl Jamie and Claire lost in Paris. The episode ends with the family preparing to return to Fraser's Ridge, when Claire hears Fanny singing an eerily familiar song inside the church. It's I Do Like to Be Side the Seaside, the same song Claire sang while cradling her daughter Faith's body in the hospital. Shocked, Claire asks Fanny how she knows the song, and Fanny replies that her mother taught her. Claire's mind races with possibilities, her breath catching as the thought forms. Could her daughter Faith have somehow survived, and Fanny is Faith's daughter? We will meet again, trust. And that's the end of Outlander Season 7 Episode 16. Now we have to wait for Season 8 and Blood of My Blood. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any